Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavat Pranam, welcome to Nityam Bhagavad Sevya. Today we are very happy to have the association of His Grace Haridev Krishna Prabhu. Haridev Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, welcome.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji, and just turn on the camera.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhuji will be sharing Bhagavad Gita from 4th canto, 23rd chapter and 12th verse. Topic is Mahārāja Pṛthu's going back home. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we are very happy to have your association. Please start.
Thank you, Prabhu. Firstly, I would like to thank the temple authorities for giving me an opportunity to also read and hear Srimad Bhagavatam and share for my own purification and Lord's glorification. We'll start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. I'll share the screen. We can recite 4th canto, 23rd chapter, text 12. The chapter is entitled Mahārāja Pṛthu, going back to Godhead. Chinnanyadir adigatatmagatir nirihas tattadyaje achinadidam vayunena ena tavanna yoga gatibir yatira pramatho yavad gadagraja katasu ratim na kuryat. Chinnanyadir adigatatmagatir nirihas tattadyaje chinnadidam vayunena yena tavanna yoga gatibir yatira pramatho yavad gadagraja katasu ratim na kuryat. Chinnanyadir adigatatmagatir nirihas tattadyaje chinnad idam vayunena yena tavanna yoga gatibir yatira pramatho yavad gadagraja katasu ratim na kuryat. Word to word meaning, translation. and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chinna, being separated. Anyadihi, all concepts of life, mainly the bodily concept of life. Adigatha, being firmly convinced. Atmagatihi, the ultimate goal of spiritual life. Niriha, desireless. Tat, that. Tatyaje, gave up. Achinnat, he had cut. Idam, this. Vayunena, with the knowledge. Ena, by which. Tavat, so long. Na, never. Yoga gatibihi, the practice of mystic yoga system. Yatihi, the practitioner. Apramattaha, without any illusion. Yavat, so long. Gadagraja, of Krishna. Katasu, words. Ratim, attraction. Na, never. Kuryat, do it. Translation. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Mahārāja Pṛthu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as Paramatma. Being thus able to get all instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of yoga and jnana system, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha or narrations about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Purport. As long as one is too much absorbed in the bodily conception of life, he becomes interested in many different processes of self-realization, such as the mystic yoga system or the system utilizing the speculative empiric methods. However, when one understands that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna, he realizes Krishna within everyone's heart and therefore helps everyone who is interested in Krishna consciousness. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. It is therefore mentioned in this verse, Yavad Gadagraja Katasu Ratimna Kuryat. Unless one becomes interested in Krishna, in his pastimes and activities, there is no question of liberation by means of yoga, practice, or speculative knowledge. Having attained to the stage of devotion, Mahārāja Pṛthu became uninterested in the practices of jnana and yoga and abandoned them. This is the stage of pure devotional service as described by Rupa Goswami. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishnanu sheelanam bhaktiruttama. Real jnana means understanding that the living entity is the eternal servant of Krishna, Lord. This knowledge is attained after many births, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. In the Paramahamsa stage of life, one realizes Krishna as everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. When one understands fully that Krishna is everything and that Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life, he becomes a Paramahamsa or Mahatma. Such a Mahatma or Paramahamsa is very rare to find. A Paramahamsa or a pure devotee is never attracted by Hatha Yoga or speculative knowledge. He is simply interested in unalloyed service to the Lord. Sometimes, one who is formerly addicted to these processes tries to perform devotional service and the jnana and yoga practices at the same time. But as soon as one comes to the unalloyed stage of devotional service, he is able to give up all other methods of self-realization. In other words, when one firmly realizes Krishna as the supreme goal, he is no longer attracted by mystic yoga practice or the speculative empirical methods of knowledge. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nite Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauravtishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Once again, I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and thank the authorities for giving me an opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam, hear from very elevated speakers. This section, every day we are seeing a lot of wonderful things spoken about Mahārāja Pṛthu going back to Godhead. So our Vedic system is such that 3/4 of the life is arranged in such a way that it is intended for spiritual realization, and just 1/4 is intended towards materialism. Brahmachari is more of cultivation of spiritual knowledge as well as required skills in order to cater to the Grahastha ashram. So Brahmachari is the student life where both the spiritual knowledge as well as the skills required to earn his livelihood are taught. But there also material enjoyment is restricted. In Vanaprastha ashram, again we are seeing here how many devotees have been speaking. Pancham Urdhva Vanam Vrajet. So after 50, one is supposed to go to forest. And I think Sankarshan Nitai Prabhu in one of the class was reading the purport and sharing how for us practically Prabhupada has made it very simple. Going to forest means being in the temple and serving full time without any other family encumbrances after 50. So because forest is in mode of goodness, whereas the temples are in mode of pure goodness, or it is non-different from Vaikuntha or Goloka, like that. So even Vanaprastha ashram is meant for spiritual realization. Material enjoyment is not given the priority there, or there is no scope rather for material enjoyment. And sannyas, there is no question of any material enjoyment at all. So it is only the Grahastha ashram, the 25 years, between 25 to 50, where one indulges in sense gratification along with the fulfilling his family responsibilities. And therefore, Vedas, because spirituality is so important for human form of life, that much of time is devoted for spiritual realization, and only 1/4 is meant for the material activities. And needless to say, for millions of lifetimes, we all have had this material desires and conditionings and baggages. So therefore, we hear also Vedas warn us that even though one is allowed to go on in the material pursuit, one should be careful that he doesn't go astray. So, and here in the translation, Prabhupada is mentioning when he became completely free from the bodily concept of life. So this is the most difficult thing for a sadhaka, because we are in touch with matter for a long time, and our propensity for enjoyment is also there. We are so deeply rooted to the conception of me, mine, all this. To get rid of the bodily conception is a very, very difficult one. And only when one gets rid of bodily conception can one realize Krishna. And there are several shlokas which remind us how material enjoyment and spirituality go ill together. Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam Taya Apahrita Chetasam Vyavasayatmiko Buddhi Samadhavna Vidiyate. So it is mentioned that as long as one is attached to material opulence and enjoyment, then one's resolute determination for bhakti cannot come. And practically one can experience this in the grahasthashram. Many a times we are constantly thinking about how to earn the livelihood and how to increase our bank balance, etc. So even during chanting, sometimes all these thoughts come to our mind. So although it is therefore the art of being responsible or dutiful but being detached is something that we can aspire to cultivate. Just like Krishna says, being on a muddy pool, the lotus is still untouched by mud. So many a times when we take responsibility, we also become attached to the facilities that come from the responsibility. We don't see it as just a matter of duty, but we become attached to that. And therefore they percolate even during our spiritual activities. So we all know that getting out of this bodily concept of life is not a easy thing. And therefore even Prahlad Maharaj also says, Matirna Krishna Paratasvatova Mitho Abhipadyeta Griha Vratanam. One who has taken a vrata, that my only vrata is to maintain the house. Such a person, Matirna Krishna, his mati cannot think about Krishna. Parata Svatova, either by his own endeavor he tries also, again it will go towards materialism, or if somebody else is preaching also, it will go towards materialism. I remember the story, we used to use this story to preach to our students on this Kailash drama. We all know that story of Kailash. Kailash was Narada Muni actually once went to Vaikunta and told, I'm unable to see the suffering of the living entities. Can you please, Vishnu, do something about it? Vishnu says, my doors of Vaikunta are open for everybody. They can all come, but why are they not coming? I don't know. So Narada said, if you please give me a chance, whoever agrees, I take them to Vaikunta with me, then I'll be very happy. So then Narada comes and he sees Kailash. So this Kailash, every time Narada tells him about Vaikunta, it's so glorious. Here there is so much suffering, like that. He says later, initially he was a student or child. He says, once I get married and have children, then I will. And that way he goes on postponing. So even though the other person is preaching, Matirna Krishna Parata Svatova, either by his own endeavor or when others are preaching also, because he had taken a vow to maintain Graha Vratanam. Even at old age, when Narada approached Kailash, Kailash said, oh, my children, who will teach them how to take care of the farm? They are not so responsible like me. So I have to keep giving them advice, etc. So he was having that vrata that I'll maintain the house. And then he died. In the next life, he became a dog. And then even that time, Narada said, at least now, why don't you come with me to Vaikunta? You're so much in a bad position, in the body of a dog. But still he was attached. No, I'm happy with this. I'm protecting my children's farm. They're irresponsible. If any predator comes, I'm here to guard them, like that. Then next life he becomes a snake. There also he says, I'm happy protecting because the crops are being eaten by the rats and other insects. So I come and drive them away and kill them. So I'm happy in maintaining. So this is the state of material attachment. And therefore, Prahalad says, Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram Punah Punas Charvita Charvanana. And also he says, Vanam Gato Yat Harimadre Mashrayeta. So says that yes, this is a very deep, dark well if one is not careful. But thanks to Srila Prabhupada, he has given us the association of devotees to help us to constantly remain not deeply within this well, but try to always remain in a state where it is easy to come out of the well. So how to come out of this difficult bodily concept of life? One easy way is sadhu sangha. We also hear this verse that ahur vimuktais, that shloka tells, by the association of saintly people, the doors for Vaikunta opens up. So Prabhupada has given this wonderful ISKCON and devotee association by which one can constantly be reminded about the difficulties of material, futility of material enjoyment, and how temporary this material happiness is, and spirituality is something that one should aspire for, and slowly try to come out of bodily concept of life. And here, in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning the first line, the same thing. As long as one is too much attached to the bodily concept of life, he becomes interested. The lowest platform of material attachment is hardcore materialist. He's only interested in sense gratification. But as we go more and more subtler, the happiness that we derive is also more and more. So sense gratification, even the Vedas say, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha means the happiness that we get by satisfying our senses. So the lowest level of attachment to bodily concept is we are interested in material enjoyment, sense gratification. Higher than Annamaya Kosha is Pranamaya Kosha, where one thinks, okay, let me at least take care of my future security needs. That is why sometimes we see husband and wife, they live far off from the family, because although they lose their sense gratification in terms of healthy food stuff at home and loving relationship with children, they think, okay, I'm getting something higher, my future needs are taken care. Pranamaya Kosha. So Annamaya is gone, but Pranamaya Kosha is taken care, like that. So they give up Annamaya for a time being to get something higher. So higher than the normal sense gratification, Prabhupada says, when one becomes disgusted with sense gratification, then they try to go one level higher. Pranamaya Kosha, then higher than Prana is Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Kosha means one tries to use his mind to try to get some happiness. And Jnana Yoga is on the platform of mental speculation, trying to find out what is temporary, what is permanent, etc. And higher than Jnana Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga, which is on the platform of Vijnanamaya Kosha. On the platform of intelligence, one tries to find out the meaning and purpose to life. And the highest is Anandamaya Kosha, where one not just knows who he is God, what is matter, but he also knows what is his relationship with God and starts to enjoy loving reciprocation with God. So that is when Ananda actually comes, and that is the highest stage, the Vedas also say. And here Prabhupada is saying he becomes interested in many different processes of self-realization. So when we are attached to bodily concept or the subtle body concept, we try to satisfy different parts of our gross or subtle body by going into Gyan or Dhyan, etc. But what is the result of that? The result is, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakala hi Ashant Atayeva Krishna Atayevan Krishna Bhakta. I'm not able to remember the other shloka. It says Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Atayeva Shant. So Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, the one who is aspiring for material enjoyment or yogic perfection or the Mukti, they are all Ashant. Why? Because they are trying to satisfy their temporary material mind or intelligence. And the moment they try to gain something for matter, it is surely going to end up in frustration. We can see this again and again quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Those who on the platform of Brahman through Gyan Yoga, they try to understand and they realize I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. But after knowing I am Brahman, they do not know what should I do in this Brahman state. And then what happens? They again come down to some philanthropic activity because they are searching for Ananda. They have got frustrated with the relationship of the material world, because in material world relationship means exploitation, cheating. So they give up this material relationship and they try to realize spirituality. And then once they realize I am Brahman, they do not know what should I do. And then they again come back to having same material relationship, doing philanthropy, etc. And what about the Dhyana Yoga? In Dhyana Yoga, one gains a lot of siddhis, and that is a distraction from the path of ultimate perfection. And the way it happens in this world is the more we try to control, the more we get frustrated. And we can see in the place of Vishwamitra also about that pastime of Trishanku. Vishwamitra had enormous siddhi and he tried to control using his siddhis. And he tried to create a planet, he created it, but he was unable to send Trishanku there. And so much of frustration. The more we think I am in control, the more we get frustrated in this world, because we understand that we are very insignificant and Krishna is the supreme controller. So all of them are Ashant. Hiranyakashipu had so much of siddhis, and the one small boy Prahalad was not cooperating or surrendering to him, and he was miserable. So repeatedly we see those who have lot of siddhis or power, they think that I can control everybody, but one small person or small insignificant thing happens which is not as per their likings, they are frustrated. So when they are interested in different bodily concepts such as mystic yoga and other speculative knowledges, they eventually get frustrated. However, one understands that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. He realizes Krishna within everyone's heart and therefore helps everyone interested in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is here mentioning what is the symptom of a person who has understood Krishna as the ultimate goal of life. He realizes all the three aspects, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. He realizes Krishna is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, and therefore he tries to help everyone who is interested in Krishna consciousness. He preaches to those people, understanding that yes, Krishna is there within their heart and Krishna will also guide them. I just have to facilitate them in their journey to the sincere people. Therefore, we see one of the symptoms of Madhyamadhikari is he is compassionate towards the innocent. That means he preaches to the innocent who are interested in Krishna consciousness. And what is the futility of Dhyan and Gyan? Prabhupada writes in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, the soul is Satchidananda. The soul is seeking for Sat, Chit and Ananda because that is its true constitutional nature. And now it is covered over. So it's again trying to see. On the platform of Brahman, we realize the Sat feature. We realize that yes, I'm eternal. But we still do not realize the Chit and Ananda feature. There is no question of reciprocation. So the soul is still hankering. And because its hankering is not fulfilled, it will again take up some other activities. The soul will identify with something else and do philanthropy. And in the Paramatma state, Sat and Chit both are realized, because when one understands that yes, Paramatma is also there, he is in knowledge of everything, he is there within every atom, nothing happens without his sanction, and he is in knowledge of that, but still the reciprocation or loving relationship is missing because Paramatma is a neutral person. He's just Upadrashta, Anumanta. But we need somebody to exchange loving relationship with. So the Ananda feature is missing. And in the Bhagavan, all the three are satisfied. And therefore, the soul is very, very firmly situated when one realizes Krishna in the Bhagavan feature. So the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. It is therefore mentioned in this verse, Yavad Gadagraja Katasu Ratimna Kuryat. Unless one becomes interested in Krishna, in his pastimes and activities, there is no question of liberation by yoga practice or speculative knowledge. Or in other words, even if one doesn't get deviated by the path of Gyan and Dhyan, if he is able to achieve ultimately the perfection there, eventually one has to discard that process and go to devotional service, because otherwise it will keep him unsatisfied. And the goal, the means and the final activity or the goal is not the same in other practices, because finally if we have to go to Vaikunta, then the activity that we do in Vaikunta or Goloka is to reciprocate with Lord in the Bhagavan feature. But in all these features, we never are doing an activity similar to what we would be doing in a liberated state. So the means and the ends are not the same. But in Bhakti, it is so natural. Whatever one is doing throughout life, the same thing one has to do after he gets into the spiritual world also. Yes, so this is one of the things Madhvacharya strongly writes to condemn Mayavad philosophy, because Mayavadis focus on Jnana Yoga, where they say Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. So two questions Madhvacharya asks. If Brahman is Satyam and Jagat is Mithyam, then how can we use this material mind, which is also matter, that means Mithya, in order to understand the spiritual truth? Yes, because you're saying Jagat is Mithya. So if you're saying Jagat Mithya, you're trying to do your Jnana Yoga through this mundane material mind. How can you use mundane things in order to attain something spiritual? And the other thing which Madhvacharya says is that the understanding of Shankara followers is we do this Panchopasan worship, the five Murtis, Ganesh and Durga and Shiva and Vishnu, all that. But if you ask them, they say, actually, these are all imaginative forms created by us, because we are so much conditioned to the bodily conception of life. So we are imagining this form and worshipping and trying to get liberated. So how can we worship an illusory form and try to come out of illusion? If we are drowning in an ocean, the way to come out of the ocean is we should take shelter of something which is not entangled in the ocean. But if the other thing is also drowning, if that is also an illusion, how can we hold that and come out? It is not possible at all. So this way we can understand the fallacies of Jnana Yoga. And even in Dhyana Yoga, although it is directly experiencing the Paramatma, but in Vaikunta, there is no Paramatma at all. Paramatma exists only in the material world. So it is like we perform some process and then we achieve a goal, and then we have to give up that process and do something new. Bhakti is so nice. Whatever one is doing now, exactly the same thing one has to go on doing. And at every moment, it is Susukam Kartum Abhyayam. Especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made this process of Krishna consciousness very, very easy and joyful to perform. Hearing about Krishna, even all of us have a tendency to hear about stories about people. Why not use that same tendency to hear about Krishna? So every part of our natural inclination of the material mind, one can use to dovetail in Krishna's service. We have a inclination to hear nice music. Why not hear music about Krishna? We have inclination to satisfy the tongue by eating delicious food. Why not offer and eat prasadam, honor prasadam like that? So that way. And as long as one is not interested in hearing about Krishna, then one cannot achieve the perfection of realizing the Bhagavan feature. And there is no question of liberation by means of hatha yoga or speculative practice. And here Prabhupada is also mentioning about what is pure bhakti, anya bilashita shunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam, anukulena Krishna, anushilanam bhakti ruttama. Real knowledge is free from,
here's what I found,
free from gyan and dhyan. It is only that thing which is favorable for Krishna. And Prabhupada is also mentioning here that when one fully understands that Krishna is everything and Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection, he becomes a Paramahamsa. So we all know that there are 4 stages in the sannyasa ashram. The first stage is called Kutichaka, where one takes sannyas, but he gives up all family relationship, but the food is being supplied from home. That is called Kutichaka. And higher than Kutichaka, it's called Bahudaka, where one stops asking them to bring the food from home, but rather one goes begging for the food. That is called Bahudaka. And higher than Bahudaka is Parivrajakaacharya. Parivrajakaacharya, now he's thinking the purpose of me taking sannyas is not to just give up the things and just think of earning my food. Rather, I have to go out and preach and help in facilitating others' journey towards Krishna. So he goes out preaching, carries a sannyas danda and goes out preaching. And higher than Parivrajakaacharya is Paramahamsa, where one even gives up the danda and is fully absorbed in Krishna, and he's immersed in Krishna bhajan, and he sees everyone in the platform of devotees to Krishna, and he thinks that yes, there's no need for everyone is a servant of Krishna. I'm the only one who needs to become more pure, and he's fully immersed in bhajan and kirtan like that. And Paramahamsa means we also know the statement Hamsa. Hamsa means one who picks up the valuable things. There is a shloka also. How to know who is a baka and who is Hamsa. Baka, crane is also white, and Hamsa is also white. Hamsa shveto, bako shveta, ko beda baka hamsayo. Hamsa is also white, baka is white. How do we know the difference between that? Once you give a mixture of kshira and water, the Hamsa will only take the milk, but the baka will not be able to distinguish what is water, what is milk like that. So another quality of Paramahamsa is nindadi shunyam. He doesn't see fault in everyone. He sees everyone has divinity within them like that. So Paramahamsa is the very highest stage of pure devotee, and he's simply he's simply interested in unalloyed devotion to God that way. And we see this progression in the life of Raghunath Das Goswami also. Raghunath Das Goswami, when he gave up his home and came to Jagannath Puri, in the beginning, the servants of Raghunath Das Goswami were daily cooking big feast, and it was not only for Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami would also invite all the Vaishnavas, and they would all be fed. So Mahaprabhu did not say anything, but Raghunath Das Goswami understood. No, I have taken sannyas. Now I have to go to a higher stage. Initially, he was getting the foodstuffs cooked by the money that his family had possessed. And later on, he told them to go back because he understood that Mahaprabhu was not very pleased with this activity. And he started sitting at the Simhadwar and begging. And then that time Mahaprabhu was kind of happy, but later on he realized that, okay, even now I'm just begging here. Rather than that, when I'm begging, I'm always thinking, yesterday he gave me this much, today will he give me? Oh, he didn't give me, he gave me. So again, the conception of he is a well-wisher, he is my enemy, such kind of things do come. So he even gave up sitting at the Simhadwar and then started just living on the remnants of the Jagannath Puri Prasadam. After the cows ate whatever were remaining, he started honoring that. So in this way, you see, progressively, he's increasing his um, level of detachment from the body, material enjoyment or bodily concept of life. And for us as grahasthas, we can see that how Pṛthu Maharaj, in the forest, he was um, in a hot sunny season, he kept himself surrounded by fire, and in cold winter, he immersed himself in cold water up to his neck, etc. We don't have to do such things, but at the same time, one has to also understand it is not very easy for us to come out of the comfortable situation, because currently, if we analyze in our life, uh, we are doing exactly opposite of what Ashtanga Yoga is. In hot sunny season, we have the air conditioners in our cars, in our rooms, etc., so that the heat is not felt. And in cold seasons, we try to make ourselves comfortable by some warm things. At least in the Western countries, such things are there. So uh, it is exactly the opposite. So our body, our minds are on one hand getting very, very attached to the comforts. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada also says in his own Leela, he says that whenever in my dreams I would get my spiritual master saying, give up home, I would feel very scared. How can I give up that way? So we should know that, yes, although spirituality is very easy, but the way we are living in this 25 years, we are slowly getting accustomed to material comforts. And how to come out of that, that is also a wonderful thing given in the devotional practice. Therefore, the devotees, we regularly go for yatra, because in yatra there is inconveniences, and there are difficulties. We may have to travel with in a common group, whether it is sun or rain, etc. So that is the hope again. Our ISKCON society has made such facilities that, yes, slowly, step by step, one can get detached. There is yatra. When we go there, we have to travel with devotees in hot or rain or whatever. So that will again help us to slowly minimize. And I was reading one place, uh, Prabhupada was writing, or I think in one of the letters or conversations, I'm not able to recollect, that even if we look at our weekly schedule, 5 days we are indulged in material activities, and sixth and seventh day in software, 2 days are holidays. In other places, at least Sunday is a holiday. So why is this given? Because the whole concept is that, okay, even in Grahastha Ashram, first of all, the Rajoguna and Tamoguna are misery producing. They are only pain producing. So our minds also feel enough is enough. We need a break that way. And the other reason for this 1 day holiday is that, okay, this 25 years, we should still be in touch with austerity, and we should still be in touch with absorption completely in Krishna. Therefore, that day Sunday is kept. And Prabhupada, the Christians also, their preaching is very successful, and Prabhupada adopted that similar thing by using the Sunday programs, so that Sunday one can absorb himself in Krishna and forget about all other material things. So in this way, constantly one is habituated. Although we are in touch with materialism, one can detach himself from bodily conception weekly once at least. Let him be absorbed in Krishna, and then becomes very easy for one at the stage of 50. One can take more spiritual advancement and steps to go closer to Krishna. So these are few things that I wanted to share here. I'm very unqualified to speak on this, because I'm myself absorbed in a lot of materialism. but I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas so that I will also be able to come out and increase my service, my attraction towards serving the Vaishnavas and towards the Lordship. And I also wanted to tell one more thing about Dhyana Yoga. Srila Prabhupada said all this mystic siddhi is nothing but same thing that one can get by advancement in science and technology. So I remember one story where there was one person who went to the Himalayas for 20 years. He was doing a lot of Ashtanga Yoga, and then he developed the siddhi to walk on water. He came back to his village and then showed all of them how he developed the siddhi. Everyone was applauding except one devotee of Lord who was just laughing at him. And then this person asked, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, "Human life is very rare. Now 20 years you have spent to just walk on water, but I can just pay one anna or one paisa and cross over this river and use that remaining 20 years for crossing over a bigger ocean, which is the ocean of repeated birth and death. But you have wasted your 20 years just to develop a skill to walk on water." And we see with science and technology, the same thing can happen with a lot of research in laboratory. We can develop boats, we can develop ships where you can still walk on water. So siddhi is nothing but another form of science and technology. Our human life shouldn't be wasted on such things. Rather, one should develop taste for hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna. And how does that come? I think the Bhagavatam first canto, second chapter, lot of shlokas are there. How one can get rid of Rajoguna, Tamoguna, how one can increase the taste for hearing. And the beginning of that series of shloka is this, that when one does service to great souls, then one's taste for hearing comes. So by serving the great souls, one's taste for hearing comes. And then the next shloka is, as soon as one starts to hear about Krishna, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, then Hridayantasto hi Abhadrani, all the Abhadra within the heart gets cleansed. And then slowly Tada Rajas Tamo Bhava, Kama Lobha, Dayaschayet, all that Kama, Lobha, all of that will reduce. So the lesson for us is, as I said previously also, we have to somehow hold on to serving a great soul, have attraction towards him, and that will rapidly help us to rise in spirituality. So some devotees, they said that they make a kind of they have a personal diary where they write, these are the things, my dear spiritual master, I'm intending to do as a service in this year, because I want to, it is impossible for one to repay the gratitude towards the acharyas, but we can attempt to reciprocate with them by rendering service, by becoming attracted to them. Srila Prabhupada was once told by some of his disciples that Srila Prabhupada, by your wonderful dealings, we become attached to you. Then Prabhupada said, yes, that is the duty of a spiritual master. Because once he's attached to a sadhu, his doors for liberation opens. So we should sincerely try to cultivate attachment towards Vaishnavas, towards acharyas, towards our superior devotees. And when there is attachment and love, naturally, there will be a question of, yes, I love him, I want to do something for him. And this is the secret how all Srila Prabhupada's disciples have done such amazing service and have transcended the modes, because even to this day, they're all deeply attached to Prabhupada, and at every moment they are just thinking how I can serve Srila Prabhupada, how I can serve. And that is the clue. Attachment increases the eagerness to hear, which is also spoken here. Unless one is eager to hear about Krishna, one cannot achieve the ultimate goal of life. And as one hears, all the anarthas reduce, the sattva, rajas and tamas go away, and one is able to cut off the material attachments. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives this series. We can meditate. This is Prabhupada's 125th year, the whole year. So we can meditate on how to increase our attachment to Srila Prabhupada by hearing more about him and reading from his books, etc. And more we get attached to Prabhupada, Prabhupada will take us back. We also remember that past time once devotee asked, should I become 100% pure to go? Prabhupada said, yes, spiritual world is like pure, and in order to enter there, you need to be 100% pure. And devotees were all feeling morose. Then Prabhupada became compassionate. He said 90%, then 70, 60, like that. Still devotees were feeling morose. And then Prabhupada said, no problem. If you're attached to me and you follow these 4 regulative principles and chant minimum 16 rounds of Hare Krishna every day, then I have a backdoor entry like that. So that attachment to Srila Prabhupada is something that we can aspire to cultivate by constantly hearing from those who are attached to Prabhupada and seeing in their lives how they are serving Srila Prabhupada. And that is a hope for us also, that all the lower natures can go away and we can also go back to the kingdom of God. So please forgive me if I was not able to convey in an appropriate manner all that I intended to. If there are any mistakes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing very deep, insightful, and very instructive points. Two common themes that I could clearly understand is, one, we should not waste the valuable human form of life. The whole Vedic system is designed that in our life, the majority of the time should be focused for spiritual activities. And also how you have mentioned the Bhakti Yoga, how it is very easy and where the means and the goal are same and so effective. Ultimately, everything have to come to Bhakti Yoga. And that's what we have been given by Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. So these are the 2 points, and many other instructive points, especially like the point around how we get attached to facilities while doing your material duties. But I think hearing to devotees or having association with devotees and going to yatras will help us be out of the bodily concept of life. Thank you very much for your time and your points. Devotees can unmute themselves to share any points or any reflections if they have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you.
It was really a wonderful class, Prabhuji. I think 2 points that you described during the class was really touching my heart. One was the advantage of Bhakti Yoga process is that the means and also the end. Through this journey itself, we will be relishing and enjoying. The other thing you mentioned is about this Jnana Yoga. So in case of Jnana Yoga, you will be doing something, and when you are achieving, up everything. So that's like, I study, prepare for IIT, and then once I go to IIT, then, you don't need to do anything, just loiter around. So yeah, that's a very, very good example, Prabhuji. And the other thing what I felt was the real danger of this Mayavada philosophy is that people become very, very insensitive, and that spoils relationships. And also one of my Siksha Guru was telling, it's a spiritual suicide. Following Mayavada philosophy is kind of a spiritual suicide, and nobody would want to commit, but unfortunately, that is predominant. And I pray that I don't get attracted and stay at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada all the time. Because in yesterday's class also, that Prabhuji was telling, like the Mayavada philosophy is like a poison, but it is sugar coated. But unfortunately, in case of some devotees, we have nectar, but we actually coat it with poison and give it. That nectar is our philosophy, but the sugar coating, the poison that we are coating around is our dealings, impersonal dealings with devotees and others. So through that, actually, we cause a lot of damage. So that's what Prabhuji was telling. So it was very wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you. So I was recollecting this when you were mentioning about Madhvacharya's point on Mayavada philosophy. So thank you, Prabhuji. Amazing class. Always release your class.
Seeking your blessings.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Wonderful class as usual. The best part I liked is Prabhupada is such a Patita Pavana, and the way he says, you do the chanting and follow the regulatory principles. I have the backdoor entry. I think at least that we should catch and then go back.
Yes, in one lecture, Radhesham Prabhu was asking all of us, what do you think should be our main motivation to practice spirituality? So we were all giving different answers. And then Prabhuji said, the secret is, if you're attracted to a Vaishnava, that can be this one, because that will do everything else like that. And you can see Srila Prabhupada disciples, their only qualification was they were attracted to Prabhupada and they had complete trust that Prabhupada will take me to the right destination.
Dandot Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you for the wonderful class. I really like that point of, instead of getting confused with too many things, get attached to spiritual master. Follow his instructions. I think that itself will take care of everything. That particular point of how Prabhupada said that, it's just very, very, it's very simple but very difficult. It's a very difficult situation, though it is very simple to follow.
Actually, in one sense, we are fortunate because I was hearing some of the Prabhupada direct disciples speaking about their experiences, and they were always saying, the more we are close to Prabhupada, serving him personally, there is a tendency to become familiar. But if you're from a distance, then we don't commit mental offenses because our mind tends to familiarize with everyone. So that way, in that sense, we are more fortunate because we are not in a position of directly serving great souls, because we try to see through our mundane spectacles what their actions are.
Yes, Prabhu, I agree. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I also want to add one point to Ravi Lochan Prabhu's comment. I heard in one lecture of Radhesham Prabhu, spiritual life is very simple if our heart is simple. Otherwise, it's complicated. So the difficult thing is to keep our heart simple.
Yes, Mataji, I agree. Very true. And then we also tend to see our spiritual master as a very material person, not like a spiritual person. And that also is sometimes, that's a serious thing, which to see him as a spiritual person is something, it requires a lot of training to some extent.
I think, Prabhu, we all should be thankful and grateful to Narahari Chaitanya Prabhu for organizing and all the team of Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So we are able to hear and then relish Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhu. Thank you to all of you.
And our devotees who upload it daily, so much of effort goes on coordinating. Venkatramana Prabhu, Ravi Lochan Prabhu, Sri Bhagavat Prabhu, Sankarshan, all of them are in turns coordinating. Every day so much of nectar is there. YouTube also, it is uploaded. Later on also one can publish. So a lot of opportunities. Shall we end, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu. We'll end with Vaishnava Pranams. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhye vacha patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Hari.